Hey, I'm Cyclon, and with one day away from Endless Heist starting, I wanted to give my take on the perfect build to level up to whatever level your goal is during the Endless Heist event. As I noted, that one line, as you can see in green, it includes the leagues that it includes is Standard, Hardcore, Standard SSF, Hardcore SSF. It including Standard means it includes Great League and the possibility to play together with others. At least that's my assumption right now. It would surprise me if it does not work. So that means we can play with a buddy and you can do a duo setup containing the Aura bot and my recommended build, the DetonateDead, VolatileDead Spellslinger, which I won't be, first, I won't be going in depth about the Aura bot. I will leave a link in the description to my Aura bot guide. I recommend the tanky version, and I recommend using Anger as your offensive aura that you're giving, and as you don't have access to Shaper's Touch, I recommend using the Vixen's Entrapment, so you can double curse, which means you can double curse for your carry. As for the build itself, DetonateDead, VolatileDead. This one is going to be super safe, super tanky. I think lots of people might going to play it, but this is not for the race to 100 and securing a demigod, but more for, hey, I have a buddy and we're going to have fun together in Endless Heist. It has several survivability layers stacked on top of each other, which I will cover in a moment. But first, let's take a look at the Ascendancy. For Ascendancy, we are going to pick up in order Plaguebringer, Corpse Pact, Essence Glutton, and Mistress of Sacrifices. Why that order? Well, Plaguebringer is going to give us reduced damage taken and increased damage dealt with corpses nearby, which you're going to be a lot of spawning. So that's gonna mean a lot of damage and not a lot of damage taken, which I do like. Also, increased AoE for the explosions are always good. Next, we have Corpse Pact, which is going to apply chilled and shock to the enemies as long as there were corpses recently next to them. So that means we have a 4-second whenever we do our desecrating to apply corpses next to the enemy, and also gives you attack and cast speed, so that means more attacks, more corpse summoning. Lastly, the increased max life means more explosions, not more explosions, but harder hitting explosions. Next, we're going to pick up Essence Glutton for some survivability. It's going to give you and your ally ES regeneration up to 2%, which is not a lot, but you get also another 8 per second, 8 ES per second from your consuming corpses, and you regenerate mana, which is nice to have. You regenerate a flat amount of mana and percentage mana. That means you should be able to sustain how many attacks you can do a second. However many attacks you can do in a second. And lastly, we are going to pick up Mistress of Sacrifices. So our offering, in this case the Bone Offering, or if you want to go offensive, the Flesh Offering can affect you too. We do not need Commander of Darkness, as we are not going to run auras ourselves, and we do not need Bone Barrier because we will need 2 passive points to get there. And we don't have any minions outside of our own little Spectre bank that we are running ourselves. So for the rest of the passive tree, this is my 108 point. You can see I've added in 12 point steps the different passive trees. We're going to start, we're going to take some life, we're going to Firewalker, some life, and then we make our way to Elemental Overload, which we're going to grab next. After that, we want more life with Purity of Flesh, which also gives us ES for later, so we don't have to respec it as early. We're going then to take up our first efficiency wheel, which you should be able to finally make us able to run Spellslinger, because at that point we won't have a 6th link yet, so that should mean our Spellslinger can do, should fit in our aura setup with the Desecrate and the Detonate or VolatileDead Spellslinger. Next, we can pick up some damage with Divine Judgment, increased effect of non-damaging elements. However, the Mastery we only really need once we get Corpse Pact. I just added it there because I had the passive point remaining. And the next step We're going to pick up the big fire wheel with Heart of Flame. We're going to make our way over to Influence. We're also going to take Written in Blood. Same reason, it gives ES and life, so when we go CI we don't have to instantly respec it. And we can get close to Snowforge, which we grab with the next level up. Afterwards we're going to transition into ES and do some respecking, as you can see here. In the middle of the tree, we're going to pick up our melding and hopefully an energy from within. If we cannot grab that, that's fine. We're not CI yet, so we don't need to get it instantly. We're also going to take up Insightfulness and we're going to pick up Unnatural Calm. Afterwards, we're going to pretty much finalize our base tree and go to CI, which I forgot to pick up here. I'm going to adjust it in the final tree, no worries. We're going to take Ghost Dance and Soothe and Sanctum of Swords, Faced Steel, and Divine Shield, assuming our Aurobot runs Discipline, Determination, and Grace at this point. And we're going to not pick up Energy here, we're going to get CI instead. And on our build afterwards, now we're going to pick up Energy Shield Leech, or pretty much, at this point the order doesn't matter as much. So what we're going to pick up is our Anointed Flesh to get Corrupt Blood Immunity and Jewel Sockets here, here, and here. And of course we do need CI, which does not fit, so we're still not going to pick up ES Leech. And then afterwards we can pick up ES Leech. We're going to get some Masteries, and we can pick up Arcane Guard for some shields damage, as well as some Arcane Sanctuary shield damage. And did I forget anything else? Oh yeah, we're finally going to get out of Purity of Flesh and Written in Blood. And afterwards we can take some finishing touches, just some... I think I confused myself, we are ready in this case. And after that it's really just some Masteries and some tiny points in some defensive layer to regain a bit more of ES. So I already mentioned it, but no further detail. Our different survivability layers. We are going to be high on elemental resistances with our Aurobot. We're going to have a high armor and evasion rating, which allows us to also use Divine Shield and Ghost Dance to gain ES on when we are getting hit. We are going to get ES recovered with Ghost Dance, and we're going to mitigate physical damage, which is going to recover ES with Divine Shield. We're going to leech life with Light Eater from all our volatiles, which are heat-seeking missiles or something. We are going to have a bit of physical mitigation from our Aurobot. We're going to have a higher ES pool with Discipline, and we have some base ES. However, that can be way higher. I'm barely using anything. I have a ring with resistances, which can be diverted on the gear, and I have some ES hybrid items to really just be low-key bad on the gear, so there's a lot of room improvement, a lot of room to make this even more absurd. As for uniques we want, I think Shade of Solaris sounds pretty good. We are already running Elemental Overload, so might as well say, okay, we can craft the use of Shade of Solaris, we gain the 200% increased spell damage as long as we critted recently, as well as some ES is extra, not ES, elemental damage is extra chaos, same on Incandescent Heart. However, we don't really need that, we can pretty much just take anything there, and we can take a Yoke of Suffering, because we are going to apply Ignite manually, and we're going to shock and chill almost everything we touch with our corpses. Yoke of Suffering gives us 10 to 15% increased damage taken. We do want one energy from within and maybe one Conqueror's Efficiency with the replica tag, so that it's minus mana cost. However, I don't think that is needed, so I have not included it here. And yeah, we are pretty comfortable with most gear that gives ES and resistances, and maybe some elemental damage or fire damage. So that means we can put most of our currency into the support, getting that one maxed first. We do need a 6-link at some point, however those should be quite easily attainable in Heist. As for builds, let's take a look here. we want a 6-link, DetonateDead, and VolatileDead. We are going to use Spell Cascade, Inspiration, Elemental Focus, and Spellslinger here. Feel free to adjust it if you know anything better, and also note that down in the comments. This was the best setup I found. We want a 3-link, Desecrate, Spellslinger, and Spell Cascade to make all the corpses that we need for our DetonateDead. We want a Frenzy to trigger it, which we are going to use Barrage and Fast Attacks, as well as Combustion, because if we have Elemental Focus on our DetonateDead, might as well put Combustion here on our Frenzy. We have a 25% chance to ignite, applying -10 fire rest, which is good once we encounter some rares or uniques that are guarding the prizes that we want to steal. We are also going to use a Raised Spectre setup with Meat Shield, allowing us to save up the highest life specters we can find. I actually don't know which those would be at the moment, but I think PoEDB should answer that. If I find that out, I will update the description. Now we're going to use a cast when damage taken setup for even more survivability, for a bone offering, so when we get hit we get some chance to block. This will automate it. We should have almost always corpses next to us. If not, might just add a level 1 Desecrate to that. As well as an Immortal Call, which is going to be less damage taken. And lastly, we have a Flame Dash with Arcane Surge and a Wave of Conviction to manually cast sometimes, if needed, for whatever is tanky enough to survive our whatever 40 to 60 volatile deaths. That leaves us with 3 open spots, 1 2 next to the Spectre setup or next to the Desecrate setup, based on how you sort those in. And lastly, from our support we are going to get Determination, Grace, Discipline, as well as Purity of Ice, Fire and Lightning. On top of that we are also going to get our hands on an Anger and Clarity, Vitality, Precision. However, I have not included those here, as those levels might vary and they are not that important for this build, as well as not that important for the Aura bot itself, because we are both CI and it does not give that much anymore. And lastly, we are going to get a double curse setup from our Aura bot, as mentioned earlier, Flammability and Elemental Weakness. However, if you want to go safe, there's also the possibility to go for Temp Chains and Evil if you don't need the damage. That is all the items, and to show that these damage numbers are fairly okay, you can get up to 60 volatile deads, and DetonateDead can detonate up to 22 corpses on the Vol version, and I think it's about 10 corpses on the normal version, so I said 10 here. With Spell Cascade on both we should proc a ton of those, and with Volatile we have up to 60. It said something there, maximum of 60 orbs at a time. I said we have 40. For our configuration, I said we are almost on full life. We don't have always full ES. We are applying fire exposure, however, if you don't like that, takes it out. It doesn't nerf the damage too much. We are applying it not to a boss, but even if it's a boss, we are only reducing our damage by about a little bit less than half. This is because of all the stats the enemy gives. But honestly, there are 2 uniques. We won't be fighting any bosses. There's a guard dog or the guard Templar or whatever, but we could just run past those. So it should be fine enough with this setup to ignore those. Also, we are having recently spawned a corpse, consumed a corpse, and in the past 2 seconds as well as we have consumed 20 corpses recently, and we are next to 1 corpse. Again, if you say I'm consuming all corpses, I'm not next to a corpse, take that out, it's not nerfing too much. And lastly we are, how did I move that now? We are applying Ignite. Okay then, we are applying Ignite, Shield and Shock to an enemy, Shield and Shock with the corpses, and Ignite manually with our Frenzy. And that's about all the notes. I've added some custom modifiers, and to justify that, those are given from the Aura bot. It's the physical damage and the increased cast and attack speed, as well as increased effective of non-curse auras. This does not affect Spellslingers, and we are only using Spellslingers ourselves here. It is Grace, Determination, Purity of Ice, Purity of Lightning, Fire. It is no longer Zero Tree, that is taken out. And Anger, we are getting an additional curse from the Aura bot, as well as the added fire damage from Flamelink. If that is unsecure, you can take that out as well, in case the carry is often dying, but the Aura bot not somehow, which I really cannot imagine. Take it out and don't use it, or use Defensive Link instead. And lastly, we have a Generosity on our Anger, increasing the effect further. It's giving about the effectiveness that we can here. There will be some slight varies based on the level of the Aura bot and the level of investment of the gear. And I think it is fairly reasonable. If not, please feel free to adjust it based on what you think is reasonable, if it's more or less. I think that is all there is to mention about here. I hope this was informative, and if you decided to run these duo setup and it worked out for you, or if it didn't work out, please feel free to come back to the video and write in the comments how it went for you. And all that being said, a great day.